welcome to episode 1 of the Group Coalition podcast. For the first episode of the Group Coalition podcast, I decided to have a very special guest on the show, John McPhee, aka the Sheriff of Baghdad. Now, it's not every day you get to talk to someone like John McPhee. Retiring in 2011 from U.S. Army Special Operations, John has served in many theaters of combat around the globe. He trained countless special operations soldiers and civilians in the proper use of various weapons platforms. Today, he runs Gunfighter University, where he trains civilians and police officers on pistols and carbines in a way that other courses don't exactly offer. And you're going to have to listen to the podcast to find out more about what he does. Now, John's not your average guy in any way, shape, or form. He tells it how it is, and that comes through in this podcast. I want to thank John for coming on the podcast and being a guest. He was very friendly and very open with me, and for that, I'd like to thank him. I'd also like to thank him for his years of military service and what he's done for this country. So, here's my interview with John McPhee. Enjoy. As a child, did you thirst for military service, or was that something that came later?
I don't know if I thirsted for it, but everyone in my family had served. My grandpa was a paratrooper World War II. My other grandpa was in the Navy. My step grandpa was in the Navy. So everyone in my family was a World War II vet. You know what I mean? And then my stepdad was a Marine. My real dad was in the Army. So everyone really in my family, or every male influence I had served at one point. And, I kind of always knew I would go in. It's just a matter of when, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, so how did you end up getting involved with special operations?
Well, first off, I just wanted to be an Air Force mechanic when I joined. And I went to the Air Force recruiter. I took the tests, and the recruiter was like, you don't qualify to be a mechanic. And I'm like, okay, what do I qualify for? And he's like, admin. And I'm like, cool, what's admin? And he said, admin, you'd type memos. And I'm like, I'd be a freaking secretary? And he's like, no, you wouldn't be a secretary. You'd be admin. You know what I mean? Typing and stuff. That's what my mom does. She's a secretary. Don't bullshit me, right? So then the Air Force recruiter guy was like, he's like, and then, exact words too. Son, have you talked to the Army or Marine Corps? They look for guys like you. So yeah. I was like, no, hadn't even thought about it. So I went to the Army. I went to the Army recruiter, and a buddy of mine that lived and grew up near me was an Army Ranger in Ranger Regiment. And he's like, that's where you need to go. And I was like, that sounds great. You know what I mean? Because, my plan of being a mechanic in the Air Force was already blown, so I had to think of something else. So I joined to be an Army Ranger and made it. And, I was in Ranger Battalion. I had loved it, didn't want to leave, didn't want to go anywhere. And then we got a Sergeant Major in that was like, hey, anybody with more than 5 years in Ranger Battalion needs to go out and help the big Army, and it's like, I don't want to go to the Army. And then a couple of the guys in my platoon that were kind of same peer group, same everything as me, ended up on orders to Korea. And I was like, yo, I don't want to go to Korea. I know I don't want to go to Korea. I know that's not happening. So I went to Special Forces selection.
Okay, that's interesting, because it seems like a guy like you'd be born coming out of the womb wanting to go to special ops.
Man,
and you wanted to be a mechanic.
Man, I didn't know about any of that stuff. You know what I mean? Honestly, I just wanted to be a mechanic. I was a welder as a kid. I worked on trucks. My dad was a truck driver. I was completely servicing and taking care of all the maintenance on a semi-truck at the age of 10. It's kind of all I knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think before a lot of these books and movies came out, not as many people knew about special ops as they do now.
No, man. I mean, it's ridiculous today, and I think it actually hurts special operations, this all this stuff out there about it these days. I really think it hurts, and I'll tell you why. Is because there's no more mystery. You know what I mean? You know what kept guys, coming to selection? Fear of the unknown kept a lot of guys away. Well, there is no unknown anymore.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I went to unit selection, I didn't know I didn't know anything about it. Like zero, you know what I mean? So, honestly, I really just took a leap of faith that, this is something I wanted to do.
Awesome. Worked out well for you.
Yeah, worked out great, right? No complaints.
Yeah. And you became known as the Sheriff of Baghdad. What's the story behind that?
Well, it's really a joke with me and my buddies over some Starbucks, and I don't drink coffee, never have. So a couple of my buddies, they drink they're Starbucks guys. So even if we're on the range for today, they got to go get their Starbucks. You know what I mean? Like, we'll stop shooting, go get Starbucks, and come back to the range and finish shooting.
Yeah. Coffee addiction.
Yeah, totally, right? So, I don't drink coffee, so they're trying to get me to order something, and I think I ordered some foo-foo coffee, and we were in Raleigh, North Carolina, super, liberal, place, and, so I ordered this foo-foo coffee, and one of my buddies says, yeah, and throw some sprinkles on it for the Sheriff of Baghdad. And, it was just kind of like, all right, now this lady's going to spit in my coffee. She gave us such a dirty look, right? So it was just kind of a joke. And one of the reasons behind that joke was I had a guy I used to work with. He was a chronic jokester. He worked in the embassy in Baghdad during the war. And he made these Sheriff of Baghdad T-shirts, and on the back it looked like a legit sheriff shirt in every way, something a cop would wear, except for on the bottom it said, serving strategic policy, one citizen at a time.
And those shirts are for you?
Well, he made them for the embassy as a joke.
Got it.
And then no one in the embassy wanted to wear it because, of course, they're, too everything for joke T-shirts, right? So anyway, so he was like, hey, he worked for me when I was a sergeant major. He was already retired, was working for me. And he was like, hey, and he's also another retired Army sergeant major. So he was like, hey, what size are you? I'm like, XX, XXX. He's like, man, I got some T-shirts for you. And I was like, bring them. I'll wear them for, I used to, I was doing MMA at the time. I played rugby for the Army. I shot pistol competitions. As a single guy, I just always stay busy doing something. And so I get he gives me a bunch of these T-shirts, right? And they say Sheriff of Baghdad. So every time I went to a pistol competition or a sniper competition, I wore my Sheriff of Baghdad shirt.
Okay, gotcha. And you were in the Army a long time.
Yeah, I did.
Retired in 2011?
Yep, I did 20 years.
20 years, wow.
Loved every minute of it, man.
Yeah.
I wish I could have stayed another 10 years, but the only thing I didn't love was being an Army sergeant major.
Why is that?
Because you're no longer a soldier.
Like admin duties or what?
Yeah, that's all sergeant majors do, They're not on the ground pulling triggers and training guys to pull triggers, professional soldier. I even told my sergeant major I didn't want to be a sergeant major, and, I got the "you're a piece of shit" speech, but truthfully, I'm a soldier, you know what I mean? They should have just left me at a rank where I could have just went team to team, training guys, taking them to combat. We do well, we come back, we do it again. The Army would be, the Army's always, onward, upward mobility by your seniority. But truthfully, I think the Army needs to come to a point where, hey, if you want to do this job for the next decade and you want to forfeit promotions and blah, 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 be my guest.
Yeah, I guess with your level of experience you had gained by that point, they wanted to push you up.
Yeah. That's correct.
Yeah. So you've served in some pretty dangerous conflict zones. What would you say was the most volatile situation you've been in, and how did you make it out?
Honestly, I don't know. The most volatile, I don't know. I don't know about any of that. I can tell you this. I love chaos. And when a war just starts and no one knows who's the good guys, who's the bad guys, I love that chaos. And I thrive in that chaos. Volatile, yeah, okay. So you could get shot. You know what I mean? It's really not that big of a deal. As a professional and, as a guy, you just got to be smarter than that. Don't get pinned down. Don't get nailed down. Always be mobile. Always be. So, there's been a bunch of volatile situations I've been in, if not thousands. And truthfully speaking, I never really felt like that. I never really seen it like that. Don't get me wrong. I knew, in the book Kill Bin Laden, I go out alone. I do a singleton recce, find a guy, US eyes on. I bring in the assault force and we snatch him. Probably the first successful, 100% successful mission in Afghanistan. And truthfully speaking, I knew if I got caught that they'd cut my head off. There's no doubt in my mind. But, getting caught, you're just dealing with people. People are people no matter what. So I wasn't really worried about getting caught and getting my head cut off because, first off, I know I'm better trained. I'm smarter. I'm faster. I'm way more trained than anyone around me. And if anything bad happened, I'd kill 1,000 people just to come home. However, having that mindset led me not to have to kill anybody and to be able to blend in places where there shouldn't be an American,
So in hostile situations, your training pretty much takes over.
I would say so. The better trained you are, the less you have to think about, training is all small blocks of skill sets, right? So the better you are at shooting, the less you'll have to think about doing the shooting when the shooting happens, and the more you can think about plan B as you're shooting. So, they say, war and stuff like that, you live in nanoseconds. Well, in those nanoseconds, you need to be thinking ahead of what's next if you haven't already figured it out.
Okay, so obviously you've served around a lot of firearms and worked around a lot of firearms.
Yep.
What have you found to be your favorite combat rifle?
I prefer any rifle that is a 7.62 based rifle. And
really?
Yeah, and the reason why is 7.62, well, first off, modern 7.62s can be the same size as 5.56 guns, same length, right? An AR-10 platform gun is only about 15% larger than an AR-15 platform, right? But really what it gives you is almost no matter the barrel length, it gives you a good kill shot from 0 to 600 yards. And those shots are easy shots. You got an 85% chance of hitting something all the way out to 600, where 5.56, that 85% chance probably stops somewhere around 300.
That's a good point. And I'm sure in the Middle East, they're a lot better for that theater. A lot of the guys carrying M14s over there, I've heard.
Man, I carried an M14 and the armor cut off the buttstock and put an AK underfolder on it for me.
That's pretty cool.
So I've carried M14s. I carried an HK-21. I carried a G3. I had the first ever 14.5-inch barreled SR-25K. I've had a lot of rifles, but really, 7.62, ends the fight now. Here's the deal in a gunfight, right? And this kills me, is there's a lot of debate over stopping power these days. A bigger bullet, more stopping power. Stopping power is shutting down a person's nervous system right now. That's stopping power. And that's about shot placement, not about caliber.
That's a good point. Yeah, there's always some huge debate that rages on, especially between 9mm and 45.
Yeah. look, you shoot somebody and you hit their spinal column and it severs their nervous system. They're done right now. The fight is over. I mean, truthfully speaking, I don't want to be in a gunfight that lasts more than one round, and that's my one round shutting down your nervous system. And that's the goal here. You know, if you have to shoot somebody, you know what I mean? Like, and here's another thing you hear all the time that I've seen is untrue is 5.56 doesn't kill people. Check this out. 22 caliber kills more people in the United States than any other caliber. A 5.56 is essentially a 22 caliber, right? And it's like a 22 caliber super magnum. The reason guys say that is because, well, if you're not trained to be a combat marksman and you shoot a guy, I don't care if it's 37 times in the shoulder, guess what? He's still not going to die.
Yeah, I had a friend put it this way. He said, if I shot you in the heart with 380, it would do a lot more damage than a 30-06 to your arm.
Yeah, or a 50 cal to your arm.
So how about your favorite pistol? What was your favorite combat pistol?
I don't know. I think my favorite pistol is, look, we use Glock 19s, carried it everywhere. We also had Glock 26s. I didn't really like that because I got big hands. I didn't like shooting it because it was like holding a teacup versus a gun. So I carried a G19 everywhere, right? And I also shot 45s. I carried 45s everywhere. Do I have a favorite? Not really, and I'm going to tell you why. Because all these guns, like, are just a tool. You know what I mean? Like, if I was a carpenter, you know, would I have a favorite hammer? No, I'd be using a hammer, different hammers for different jobs. People understand that, you know, like if I was a mechanic, would I use the same wrench on every car that comes to the shop? The answer is no, right? But yet when it comes to guns, right, you're only supposed to be using one. I'm a tool for the job kind of guy, and that's why I've shot a lot of different guns in combat. And then, you know, I think that mindset stems from, you know, regular Marines and regular Army. They're given one rifle, one pistol, that's it. And that's what they like because that's what they know. Where I worked, I could have any weapon I want. So if I could carry anything I want, what's best for this job? Okay,
that's a good way of putting it. And you made your own Glock 19 holster, correct?
Yeah, I make I call it the Condom Holster. It's just a minimalist holster, and it's a copy of a lot of holsters I've been using for years. And I was doing a lot of kind of concealed work or covert concealed for a lot of different guys and agencies and, you know, special operations, just a lot of different people. And when I come out to the class, I'd make those holsters. I'd have a buddy of mine make those holsters, and I'd give them to guys. And here's what I learned. In a place where they'll buy me anything I want for this mission right now, well, what do you buy? You know, so, you know, the guy would go out, buy the top, you know, one of each top 10 holsters on the market, and I would think every one of them sucked. And truthfully, no one ever explained the why of each holster to me. So, what I was doing is I was bringing the holsters, and then I'd bring them to in class for the guns that the guys had, and then I'd show them how to use it. Guess what their favorite holster would be? The one they're trained with, the one they're shown how to use. So, you know, about a year ago, I started doing a web store, and that's one of the things that I've kind of always made and always used, and now it's just kind of, you know, now we sell it commercially to everybody instead of just a select few, you know, of the who's who of who takes that kind of class from me.
So where can listeners find your web store?
Couple different ways. You can go to the SOBTactical.com, my website, and you could click on the store link, or you could go directly to SOBmanswag.com, and that'll take you right to the store.
Okay, cool. And John, you have a code you made, Shrek's 10 Warrior Commandments, which is focused on leadership.
Yeah.
How did those come about?
You know, it's just stuff I've seen over the years. whether it's from being the boss in combat or being a team player in combat, and it's all the little things that made me successful that a lot of guys didn't do. So I kind of just wrote them down real quick. I think they're not only insightful but funny at the same time. Like one of the rules is, you don't jihad in another man's pants.
Yeah.
That's because somebody took my pants one day and they were wearing my pants on a mission. Right now,
Gotcha.
There's several other things. There's second, third order effects that go along with that. But basically, everything on there was something I ran into that I started to either employ, take care of the people around you, we're going out screwing up vehicles nightly, and the mechanic was my armored vehicle driver. Not only was he my armored vehicle driver, but while we were sleeping, he was fixing the vehicles we screwed up, and then we'd roll out the next night, and he wouldn't sleep at all, So every time there was some downtime or chance to hang out, I'd go hang out with those guys, and it's the same with pilots. When you park the pilots, when you make the pilots live with the guys, the pilots take ownership in their guys, and they're not going to leave them on the battlefield or in a bad situation to where, when that doesn't happen, well, the pilots are their own entity. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's one team, one fight. So a lot of that stuff I had just seen, and it made me very successful time and time again. And one day I just kind of jotted down what I think would be the 10 Commandments, and that's what it is.
Awesome. You now run Gunfighter University.
Yeah.
In which you travel and teach classes on effective firearms handling techniques. So what sets Gunfighter University apart?
Oh, are you kidding me? Gunfighter University is awesome, and I'm going to tell you why. Because Gunfighter University isn't for the guy that comes to my class. It's not for the police I've trained. It's not for the special operations guys I train. It's for the regular guy to go to the range. And here's the why I think the Gunfighter U is so awesome. Because if a guy just wants to learn to shoot and he goes to the range, he's going to run into some NRA instructor that weighs 300 pounds, that his day job is some data mining guy. A guy never left his parents' basement, but he takes a couple NRA classes and now he thinks he's the best shooter on the planet. So some new shooter is going to go out to a range, and this guy's going to jump his ass for safety, and then he's never going to want to come back. Like, this is holistically the problem of the Second Amendment, is everybody thinks they know everything about it. And when someone comes out and they're just trying to learn and they screw something up, they're going to yell at them in the name of safety, when really, well, don't yell at them. Show them what to do so it doesn't happen again, and keep them coming back to the range. So this is kind of the weirdo stuff about the shooting industry. So here's the premise behind the Gunfighter U. You go somewhere where you can shoot. You have your friend or your wife or whoever videotape you on their smartphone. You send me the video, and just through watching the video, listening and applying to what I tell you, through dry fire or maybe shooting it a couple times, right? After 2 or 3 lessons of the Gunfighter U, you can now go back to this range and you're out shooting all these fools that are just trying to tell you what you need to do.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah. The next layer to the Gunfighter U is women, right? Like, women don't want to come to a class, or women want to be in just women classes, and women don't want a man to yell at them, or so. Again, you could go out with your husband or boyfriend, or go out with your girlfriends or whoever you're with. You could shoot a couple rounds, do one of the drills, send it to me, and now you could get better and have instruction, private instruction in your own home. And the beautiful piece to the Gunfighter U is the more you watch those videos, the better you're going to get.
Gotcha. So have you found that a lot of women like your course?
Yeah, women love my training. Everyone loves my training. I mean, honestly, I think I'm advancing knowledge and shooting knowledge every day I shoot and take video. versus most guys are just regurgitating what they were taught in an NRA class. Well, I took this class 10 years ago. Now I was told I'm the instructor, so now I got to reflect on what I was taught to teach, future shooters. And, so essentially what you're telling me is all firearms training right now on the planet is grapevine information. You know how good the grapevine is, right? We could do a grapevine right now, and by the time that information gets back to you, it's going to be different, way different, not even the same. So essentially, all weapons handling is grapevine information, right? The Gunfighter U is never grapevine information. It's always firsthand information. And the reason why is 10 years from now, you can go back to those videos and see exactly what happened. There's no myth. There's no remembering. And I mean, I train a lot of police, right? So a cop gets in a shooting, 99% of the time, the cop doesn't remember the shooting as it actually happened.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I mean, think about this. I mean, think about any witness testimony or any type of, you know what I mean? Like, you think you would be a credible witness in the court of law if you learned this or this happened 10 years ago? The answer is no. And now you're going to call yourself the instructor and head honcho? It wouldn't even stand up in a court of law. Why would it stand up in in training?
Where can people find out more about your courses?
You can go to SOBTactical.com is where the classes are. You can go to gunfighteru.com. And there's a link to my classes on there. The Gunfighter U is probably my favorite thing to do, because what happens is, so the Gunfighter U, right? Let me give you the how I teach the Gunfighter U. When you come to one of my classes, Sheriff of Baghdad, SOB Tactical class, really what you're going to get is a Gunfighter U session. The morning's going to be Gunfighter U sessions. In the afternoon, we're going to expand that knowledge. But really what it is, it's threefold. First off, modern sports coaching model, right? NFL. They've been watching videos since the 70s of their opponents and what they need to do to be better to win on game day. Modern sports coaching model is 90 to 95% technique and 5 to 10% practical application, which is a shooting. And it's all performance on demand. That 5 to 10% is performance on demand and practical application, and it's going to be the worst situation of your life, right? So I'll give you an example, right? The shooting industry. You go out to the range, you're having a good time, you shoot 400 rounds with your buddies, and then you're like the last 20 rounds, you're like, hey, let's work on the draw or let's work on the reload. Well, this is actually backwards from what you should be doing, right? Because you just ingrained 400 times of doing something, that wasn't perfect. If you do it my way, right? So let me ask you a question. So if you did something 10,000 times your way, right, what do you think the 10,001st is going to be?
Same way.
Same way, right? You do it my way. We do 10 times perfect. What do you think the 11th is going to be?
It's going to be perfect.
It's going to be closer to perfect than anything you did. And really, the shooting industry is, the answer is you just need more rounds under your belt. And it's all generic advice, like, dude, man, bro, you need to work on your grip. Like, okay, that's why I came to a class, because I knew my grip sucked. So thanks for stating the obvious, but are you actually making me better or giving advice to me to make me better? And then the next thing is the advice that I'm getting, is it based off of video or is it based off of grapevine information going back probably to World War II?
Yeah.
Well, my advice is based off of video. So the modern sports coaching model, right? All sports do this, right? Now, let me apply that model to an MMA fighter. So he comes into the dojo, right? And he's going to fight 400 guys. And then the last guy of the day is like, hey, let's work on the arm bar. Like, how would he actually get better?
I see what you're saying. Not spending enough time on it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'll give you another example. The wide receiver in the NFL, right? You think it's natural for him step toe to the line, catch the ball out of bounds? You think that's natural? Because it happens in under a second. And these guys are pulling it off game after game after game. It's one of their it's a playbook play. You think this is natural for a human being to just pick up and do?
Not really.
So do you think it only, the guy only gets better because he does that in games? No. You know how many times during the day he steps toe to the line, leans, and someone throws him a ball for him to catch. Do it again, until it becomes second nature, right? Well, why isn't the firearms industry doing the same thing? It's because they don't apply the modern sports coaching models that have, let's be honest. Look at how far sports has advanced in the last 10 years due to coaching and strength coaching and technique coaching and the thing they're doing to all get better is watch video. Why isn't the gun industry doing this?
That's a good point.
You know what I mean?
I've never really thought of it that way.
Yeah. The next thing is there's a little bit of neuroscience in my class, right? Neuroscience. I talk to some neuroscientists. I chat up a few of these guys. They use a lot of words I don't understand, but in a nutshell, here's what I learned from neuroscientists. There's two parts of the brain, conscious mind, subconscious mind. The conscious mind works at 40 bits a second. The subconscious mind works at 1.1 million bits a second. Right? The subconscious mind is the one that combines all these actions to make a shooting happen in a second or less. Right? It's head placement, foot placement, knee placement, arm placement, both hands, grip, everything you do, the subconscious mind is pulling off in a second or less for you to even take your first shot. Right? And why do I think the neuroscience is important? Is because I've seen in Iraq guys say, I shot that guy and I didn't see my sights, right? But when we go check shots, those shots couldn't be two better looking shots, right? And then from the side, what I seen was this guy do it completely perfectly. Rifle came up, safety came off, finger on the trigger, shoots two shots, aim, shoot, weapon back on safe, rifle down, and he continues on his way. Well, how does he say he doesn't see his sights?
It's muscle memory.
Muscle memory, yeah, but what is muscle memory? It's the subconscious performing at a high level in survival mode while the conscious mind is thinking, oh shit, I'm going to die. The subconscious mind is like, yo, I got this. Boom, boom. Problem solved. Let's move on. Right? Because the subconscious mind works millions of times faster than the conscious mind, right? So it's no different than the NFL running back who he's not thinking about, his head being down and his chin tucked because he does that every time. It's subconscious. He's not thinking about holding the ball because holding the ball is subconscious. He's not thinking about anything other than reading the gap. So the conscious mind says, there's a hole, run left. He goes left. He's not thinking about the running, the holding the ball, his head placement, right? All this can be trained in firearms, same as in the NFL, same as NHL. So, and it all bases around neuroscience, right? So the neuroscience is, in the gun industry, right? It's still very, hey, let's dumb this down so everyone can get it. You ever heard that?
Yeah.
Like, that is such a terrible statement because the part of the brain that learns is 1,000,000 times faster than the part of the brain that talks and could actually teach somebody. Right? So dummy training is just terrible training. You know what I mean? You think dummy training works on the NFL running back? You know what I mean? No. Like, he needs to know at a very high level because that's what level he's at, right? So, so the neuroscience. So the first piece is the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, right? The next piece to neuroscience is, shooting, the worst situation in your life is going to be performance on demand. You're going to have to step up and perform. Well, this is what the video replicates. You know what I mean? In so many ways. So when a guy steps in front of the video and he performs for the first time, right? That's exactly what he would do in a shooting. So if he messes it all up and was like, oh man, that's terrible, guess what you would have done in a real shooting? You think it would be any different?
And I'm sure you have a lot of guys that are doing things they don't even know they're doing. And they're like, I don't do that. And then you show them the video, right?
Yeah. So ego.
Yeah.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. And I contribute this to ego, right? And then, so the old way is like, hey dude, don't do that. And the guy's like, well, I'm not doing that. Hey dude, don't do that. Don't do that. You tell a guy 80 times in a day and you never get him to stop doing it. With the video, you show him one time, like, don't do that. I didn't do that. Watch the video. Oh crap, I am doing that, right? It's because his subconscious mind is actually doing it, right? So, and here's the way this works. The subconscious mind knows good shooting from bad shooting, right? It knows good from bad in everything you do every day, right? It knows good driving from bad driving. Your subconscious mind is the smartest animal on the planet. I'm convinced of it. So, your brain, if you're watching TV, you see Rob Latham, and he's shooting the Nationals and he's burning it down and wins the title. You're like, that's good shooting, right? And then you watch a movie where, some guy, Rambo, he's shooting an M60 without a shirt on. It's like, well, brass is going to burn his nipples, right? And there's no way he could have his hand on the front of the gun without a glove because that's going to get hot too. And then, you know what I mean? There's so many problems with it. Your brain's just like, oh, man, that's horrible shooting. And I know that, right? Your brain knows good from bad, but what your brain doesn't know is what you are doing as it is trying to control you. So as soon as I show you this, right, like, the second piece to this is they say the windows are the eyes of the soul, but truthfully speaking, the windows are the eyes of the subconscious mind. So if I could show you what you're doing, your brain will instantly correct and try to replicate what it knows is good shooting.
Sounds like you got this nailed.
I've been doing this a while now, man. I've been doing this a couple years. So that's the neuroscience piece, right? The last piece is the technology, and that's, I use the Coach's Eye app. And look, there's other apps out there that do the same thing, but, I know the Coach's Eye guys. I use the Coach's Eye. I've used other apps, but the Coach's Eye, as an app on my phone, it is money. Like, I can't say enough good about it. So here's the technology piece, is the last piece, right? So modern sports coaching model, neuroscience, and then the technology. So what I do is I film you, right? And then I can give you a play-by-play of what you did at 240 frames a second, right? And as we see that play-by-play, right, it shows the whole picture, like, you'd be amazed at what I see on the video. And there's not a problem you can have that's going to hide from the video at 240 frames a second. So the next piece to that is, well, you hear me and you talking, and it puts our voices over the top of the you shooting video, right? The last thing it does is I can draw a series of lines, right? I use red, yellow, green. This is now being adopted by, NHL, NFL, Olympic track and field. I use red, yellow, green lines on the screen because green is good. Don't worry about it. Yellow could be better. Red is don't do it again. So, like, say you're drawing the pistol, right? If I map out your entire draw stroke, the gun coming out of the holster, that's green because, like, there's only one way to do that. Just get it out of the holster. So, okay? And then as you shoot the gun, that'll be green. But somewhere in the middle, right, we might have some yellow lines, right? Well, I can show you in inches how to get better, right? So if you look at the whole thing, say there's 5 steps to it, you got 3 green lines and 2 yellow lines, you could instantly look at, I need to improve right there. So when I'm doing good, don't worry about it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Don't even think about it, right? Just think about what you need to do to improve, right? So you'll see red, yellow, green, and then you'll hear the play-by-play. And any question you have, anything I say, it all gets mashed onto the video, and then you'll have that forever.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Well, John, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Dude, anytime.
Yeah, I hope to talk to you soon.
Okay, man. No problem.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the first episode of the Group Coalition podcast. You can find more at groupcoalition.com or on Instagram @Group Coalition. Cheers.